A happy accident is a mistake or unplanned event that results in a beneficial outcome. I'm here today to inspire you to see mistakes in speaking activities as opportunities for improvement in language accuracy through self-correction. Why self-correction? It's very normal for students to expect teachers to correct them and provide the accurate version of the language. What I noticed is that many times students were making the same mistakes, especially on structures or vocabulary that they already knew, but somehow failed to put in use. So I decided to try different ways to encourage learners to see what they already know and work on their mistakes to become more confident and less dependent on their teacher. When it comes to working with mistakes, there are three factors that deserve our attention. So one is the students' beliefs. So we have to encourage students to see their mistakes not only as a natural, but also an expected part of the learning process. Two, the classroom atmosphere, which should be friendly, and learners need to feel safe in order to make the best out of self-correction activity. And third, and last factor, is the difference between errors and mistakes. Errors can happen when the student doesn't know what the correct word or structure is. It is just a guess, just an attempt. For instance, you don't expect an A2 student to be able to correct their slips on the penal prepositions because that's something they probably haven't acquired yet. That's an error. It comes from lack of knowledge. Mistakes, on the other hand, reflect occasional lapses in performance. They can happen for multiple reasons. So maybe students are anxious, they're nervous, or too focused on meaning rather than on form, and so on. Mistakes entail failing to apply the rules, meaning that they know the rule, they just don't always follow it. But there is hope. That's something that students can actually work on because they can access prior knowledge. You can read more about this on Second Language Acquisition by Rod Ellis, which is on the references of this presentation. This talk aims to suggest 3 ways and 3 tasks that were done mainly with pre-intermediate and intermediate students of general English, but they can work with any level and context. So let's crack on. Laura, I see that you raise your hand there. Is everything okay?
Yeah, sorry, Gabby, you're okay.
All right, perfect. So the first activity is recorded topic-based monologues. So here, it's very similar to Ian's idea. Sorry, Ian. Students have to prepare a topic that they are comfortable talking about, such as my hometown, unforgettable holidays, my experience living in Ireland, and so on. They are then given time to prepare their talks in class and practice with a partner. They then record an audio, 2-minute maximum, talking about the topic. Their task is to listen to it and choose an extract to transcribe. Once that's done, they choose one or more aspects that they know they could have done better, such as pronunciation of a sound, a word they weren't sure of, specific grammar point, or just a better construction overall. They rewrite the same extract with these changes and record the extract again, this time with a more accurate language. I always encourage them to add a reflection, so either spoken or written, about why they chose to change what they did. Let's see it in practice. So this is from an upper intermediate student talking about the rights of individuals. Let's listen to the first version. I'm just double checking if I have shared my computer sound. There you go. So this is the original version.
Hi, so today I would like to talk a little bit about the rights of the individual and how we know we are crossing for hard times, and not just in my country or your country, in the world.
Okay, so the highlighted parts were the sentences or phrases that Susie decided to focus on. So let's see what improvements she came up with in the corrected version.
Hi, my name is Susan, and today I will talk a little bit about the rights of individual. As we know, the whole world is going through difficult times. It's impossible to talk about rights.
As you can notice, she chose these phrases because that's something that she knew, but somehow she failed to apply in her first version. She probably just needed time to notice. During this whole process, I tried to intervene as little as possible just to make sure that students were in the right track before recording their second audio. I also allowed them to work at their own pace in the classroom. Moving on to our second activity, so that's a self-correction table. Here, I wrote down some examples of inaccurate language gathered throughout the lesson, and I allow the last 20 minutes of class for students to work either individually or in pairs to correct sentences and provide a comment. So the comment should answer the question, why is this correct? Why is this language correct? Which usually leads to a grammar explanation or a better choice of vocabulary. And it serves a way to reinforce any specific language point that you think students struggle with. The funny thing is that sometimes students are able to provide the correct sentence, but they don't know why. They just know that it sounds correct. And that's okay. The comment can be given by the teacher or elicited from the students. A bonus idea here for you. You can make this activity more engaging and more interesting by using their notes and turning them into games afterwards, such as tic-tac-toe or memory game with the comment and the mistakes. The third and last activity is role plays. So this can be done with any role play that you do with your students. After assigning the roles and giving students some prep time, you tell them that they're going to be part of an experiment and get their consent for recording the presentation. Hopefully they will say yes. Once they have presented it, have them watch the video, listen to the recording of the presentation and analyze the language used. Without giving any clues, get them to see what they could have done better. They then present it again. You can always ask students to justify the changes they did. So adding a reflection as a final stage is an essential part of the process. Because we don't have much time today, I'm afraid I cannot show you examples of this one, but students find it very useful as they can work together, which leads to the next part. What do students say about it? Well, just like Ian has mentioned, after they get more used to the sometimes traumatizing experience of listening to their own voice, and they become more familiar with the tasks, they report becoming more aware of the language needs, as well as learning different ways to say the same thing and avoid repetition. And of course, they realize that they can work on their own language improvement without the constant presence of a teacher. One of the students actually liked the idea so much that he started recording talks on a weekly basis to check his progress in speaking skills. Yes, it happens. The objective here is for students to start seeing their own mistakes as nothing but opportunities for improvement, because that's what mistakes are. Why you should give it a go? Because noticing tasks like the ones I've shown you increase learners' awareness of their own production. These tasks can also help both teacher and student identify students' language needs and recognize gaps between performance and the target language. It also encourages learner autonomy, as the student is the one who is in control of their own language production. It also provides a tangible record of something tangible, speaking skills, and gives learners a sense of progress and achievement, which is directly connected to their motivation as language learners. I would like to conclude by saying that mistakes are essential. So if students are making mistakes, they're trying something new, and we can count on what they already know to improve their own language production, and therefore take more ownership towards the learning process. They become more confident speakers as they are now equipped with strategies to make themselves understood, and they are more likely to produce more accurate language in the future. Here you can find my references. I hope you found this talk insightful, and I am looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabby, for that. There's a really insightful presentation. And we've got a few questions. So the first one is, Mara wants to know, what is students' response to recording themselves more than once? And are they adamant or do they embrace it?
So at first they find it a bit weird because they're not used to listening to their own voice, not even their first language, or when they send audios on WhatsApp, for instance. But once the activity is done and they feel better, they are able to identify at least one or two things that they can improve, and that for them is highly motivating. So they responded very, very well. There has been cases of some of them who don't actually like it. We have to respect, I think that we cannot force anything, but once the whole class does it and they see that they can work on their own language production, it gets very interesting.
Brilliant. Ricardo has a question as well. How do students prepare before they record? Do you ask them to follow any kind of script?
No, I don't. So depending on the kind of activity, so for instance, in the first one, that's the one that they have to talk about something that they like, they're comfortable talking about, they prepare keywords, not as much of a script. Yeah, the idea is for them to use their spontaneous talk in order to be able to correct later.
Okay. And then there's just two more. So there's one from Christine who says, how important do you think it was or is to let them work at their own pace in this activity?
I think that every student has their own time to dedicate to either researching or listening to their own audio. Some students take more time because they want to listen to it 2 or 3 times. Sometimes they need a teacher to help them. So it depends, and I think the students benefit at working at their own pace.